principals, there are seats at the tables for you, so please feel free to join your colleagues. And just a reminder to everyone, please turn on the microphones. Mr. Case is our video recorder, and he's asking to give you that reminder, please, so that your audio will be heard. Right, so welcome everyone. It is about 1:32, so we're a couple of minutes behind schedule, but welcome to the first meeting of our new school year. Welcome back. And we will start with our curriculum resource approvals and action items. So the first item on our agenda, we request approval for the revised reading curriculum for middle level comprehension courses in grades 6, 7, and 8. The reason for this revision is that previously these courses were offered as cycle courses or marking period courses, and now each grade level, 6, 7, and 8, these courses will meet daily beginning this school year, the 12-13 school year. So if we could just see that curriculum, Mrs. Hickey. I just did want to point out a couple of things. First, this discipline description, and before I start, I would like to commend Jen Payton, who is our new reading curriculum leader, for the countless hours that she put in revising and re-revising this curriculum. The work of the teachers who worked with her, it is really an outstanding document. It's one of the first curricula to use our new curriculum template. So as you go through the combined agenda, you'll see the curriculum here, and it has the components that we looked at last month when we looked at that curriculum template. So just to point out for you in the discipline description, this is the description of the comprehension course, which if we're speaking in RTII terms, response to intervention, instruction and intervention, these courses are what we would call Tier 2 courses. So the intent is to intervene strategically and intensely so that students can move to grade level reading at least by the end of the school year. We did note that in the very last paragraph. The students do have the ability to exit the course before the end of the school year based on certain criteria that they need to meet. But the goal is that all students that are placed in this course are reading at a level that would guarantee that we can get them to grade level before the end of the school year at least. So we have made that statement in the discipline description. As we move through, I'd like to point out also page 6, Mrs. Hickey, which has the pacing guide. Page 6. Curriculum guide and right there. Okay. So you'll notice here that the pacing guide says throughout the year ongoing, and that is not typically what a pacing guide should say. Typically you should be given a framework of a marking period or a trimester or a month. The problem with doing that in this course, and Jen did note there next to the please note, the concepts are taught cyclically. Kids may be moving in and out of the course, so the teachers want to make sure that these skills, these strategies are taught to the students as they're in the particular course. So it was not possible to say, okay, we're going to teach finding the main idea the first marking period, or we're going to teach that in September. This is ongoing instruction, And so this pacing guide is going to look a bit different from pacing guides that might be found in other content courses. And there is a disclaimer there as the reading folks have identified the issue. The other things that I wanted to point out in this curriculum, which I think are notable, are that the teachers, and on my document it's pages 14 through 18, I think, the teachers have aligned to the PA Common Core. Now, right now, the PA Common Core is in draft form on the website, on the SAS website. But we included it in this document because unless there's some earth-shattering problem with changing Chapter 4 and these Common Core, these will be the standards that we will need to teach. So the teachers have infused these as well as the Common Core state standards into the document, which are at the end of the document. So we are sure that in this course, the students will be challenged to meet the Common Core standards that currently are in place. And we feel that these students will be given a rigorous comprehension course that will enable them to be reading at grade level by the end of the school year. So Jen, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to point out to the group that I may have overlooked.
No, the further breakdown is, if you want to look on pages 20 through, it starts at page 20 where it kind of breaks down our the core strategies that we're teaching before, during, and after strategies and how they are linked to the Common Core. You can see that right there. And this will be ideal for the teachers in those courses to make sure that they're giving instructional strategies and technology integration and things like that to help them connect this as we were making those changes to Common Core. So we broke it down by, we call it unit, but it's kind of broken down how we teach reading by before, during, and after strategies, how we attack it in the reading class rather than, unit 1 is, it's different in content than it is for reading. So I'll just point that out.
And one last thing, Mrs. Hickey, page 31, I wanted to point out, and you can see it there, writing standards, but Jen did make sure that we have the writing standards as appropriate in this course. It's very important as we move into an English language arts PSSA that we have students that are prepared and have practice writing in response to reading always. And these teachers will be instructors of writing in the sense that they will be asking students to respond in writing to what they are reading. And the notion of writing and reading being reciprocal processes is noted in the discipline description and in the guiding beliefs. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone is clear with what that needs to look like in the course for the reading course, that writing is always a component of a reading instruction. Any questions, comments about the curriculum, anything as you were looking through it maybe puzzled you or you thought was awesome and you might want to commend Jen and her group? Okay.
I'd like to say, Dr. Patel, that I'm very excited about this course. I think I said that before, but I think it's a nice addition to the middle school curriculum and a nice change from before, from taking away the non-playing course, replacing. But I'm very excited and I'm very appreciative that it's got in place for this year because I have a 6th grade.
Okay.
Board members, do we have any issue with passing this forward? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Seminole. Next item, also related to the reading comprehension courses, we are requesting approval for the resources that are noted on the screen that you see for both middle schools in an amount not to exceed $8,500.74, including shipping and handling. And Jen has a copy of at least one of the resources that the teachers will be using, and she just would like to speak briefly to the selection.
We chose, we added what you see up there right now at the top, Perfection Learning, Jamestown Education. You can see where LMS and DMS's quantities are different, and that's because we're trying to bring the levels, the amount of materials that they have in both buildings up to exactly the same. So instead of just flat out buying a bunch of things and then seeing where we counted how many we had and trying to fill in the gaps so that everybody's equal in what they've got. So that's why it's listed separate like that. And they already have some of these materials, but if you can see, like the one Perfection Learning, DMS has got like 40 copies, but LMS has nothing. So we're just going to order so that, or I'm sorry, it's the opposite. LMS has got enough, but DMS needs 40 of them. So in order to make them equal and equivalent to each other, we're adding so that everybody has the same thing. The other thing we wanted to add, the Hope and Lift one at the bottom, is what's happening. It's reading strategies with informational text. It goes directly along. I've looked through this at length, and the teachers have spot checked it and test drove it a couple of times with some lessons in the classroom. And it's strictly informational text, which goes to the core of the class, and it goes directly with the Common Core standards. It also has a writing component in there where the kids are responding to the text, and some research in there, and it helps the kids with summarizing and things like that. So we've looked through this, and we all agreed that this would be very helpful, and of course we need enough for both buildings for that. So, and these are all supplementals for the course. So.
Yes,
Okay, two questions. I can understand the equal, except that the numbers are different in buildings. Is it necessary for them to be equal? Should Lineville have more because they have a couple hundred more students?
But it's based on their numbers.
So you're
When I'm saying equivalent, I'm saying based on need in the building.
So
that
the
make sure
needs
that
are pretty much the same even though the numbers are different?
Mm-hmm. It's to make sure that you have enough materials available for the students at both buildings.
Okay. Then my second question is, do we have, and maybe I missed this and I apologize if I have, some kind of matrix or something created, which is, my mantra these days, to prove that what we're doing is successful? What are our measures, and when are we going to reevaluate? And do we expect this, is this something infinite, or are we going to look at it in 3 or 4 years and say, yes, this program is terrific, we want to keep going with it, or you know what, maybe we need to start considering something different?
Well, I think these resources aren't really a program. What the teachers have been doing is taking the curriculum and then finding supplemental resources, if you will, to teach the strategies and the skills that they're instructing in the course. So in terms of measuring the effectiveness of a program, this course, the comprehension course, doesn't really use a program. It uses different supplementals.
So it's just supplemental.
Right.
So do we do any kind of evaluation tool at the end of 2 years or 4 years? I mean, when do we look and say this is no longer relevant, or this is, we need to update it? I'm just trying to understand. And it's not just for reading, it's for all of us.
Well, the reason that we brought the middle school academic advisors and the principals to BCC at the end of the year was, and maybe we weren't explicit enough about that, was to give you an idea of the number of students who entered the program and those then who exited the program.
But
and that's our measure of
asking,
success.
I'm just saying in general, this supplemental, how long is it in place? Do we evaluate that it's no longer, do you understand what?
Jane, I think I do understand. Part of what will tell whether this is successful is how many kids exit out of it and how quickly.
No, I understand that, but I'm asking supplemental resources in general, any resource in general. What is the time frame as a district that we look at it and say, this is still very effective, we need to continue with it, or you know what, we're using this and it's outdated. Do we have any kind of a checklist or anything that says, we kept CCC for 20 years, without any real because it was there. So I'm just trying to get everybody to start thinking, do we have a system in place, or can we create a system?
I guess I'm struggling with what measure of success you would use other than students moving or exiting the program. So the reason the teachers use a variety of resources is because not every child responds to a single program.
I just don't want to, in 2 or 3 or 4 years, just continually buy more if maybe it's not as effective as it was when you started. So that's all I'm asking is.
So are you saying maybe we should have some kind of way of surveying the teacher at the end of the course or periodically?
Right.
To say, these are the resources
These
you
are
have
our
for
resources.
this
Do you
class.
find that some are no longer effective? Do you see something? And again, not picking on reading, just in general, do we just hang on to dinosaurs because we've used them for 10 years and we all think it's effective?
And I think that's part of what we were doing when we were looking for resources this year. This what's happening that we're all asking for is 2012.
Right.
It is brand new. That's we looked into hardcore, and I'm actually trying to research to find out if they have more at the high school level of these types of texts that we can actually possibly use and get like some reviewer copies of it, because these are brand new printed, and there's not many resources at secondary ed for reading at this point, and especially linked to the Common Core. So I'm sure, like you were saying, they just surveying at the end of the year, the teachers, how effective did you think this was? Is something we want to redo next year? Do we want to look further into other materials?
I'm not even suggesting every year you survey, but do we have something in place for every 3 or 4 or 5 years? We just put a word out and say, what do you find has been effective? What isn't effective? Have you heard something that, because it isn't. You may use it and probably it's going to be wonderful, but what if it isn't?
Maybe we just need to do that in a more formal way, because I'm thinking of one program that the reading folks used last year with 8th grade. It was called Word Generation. And it was a vocabulary program. And it was free, but regardless of whether we pay for it or we don't, the teachers found that the vocabulary that was being instructed were words that the children already knew, and they found that the time that they were investing versus the results were not, they weren't getting the bang for the buck, so they're not using that program any longer. So that's the kind of thing you're talking about. Okay. Yes, so we'll make that a little more formal then. We do that, we have conversations within the department, but we don't, we haven't made that as visible as maybe we should. Okay.
Board members, are we okay with passing this forward? Thank you.
Okay, the next item, thank you, Mrs. Simonelli. The next item on our agenda is field trips. Ms. Saxa.
Thank you, Dr. I am pleased to share some information about some very exciting field trips that are going to be, at your discretion, added to the bank. The first is a series of field trips that is actually multi-school because it's representatives from STEM, students from STEM, as well as students in grades 4 and 5 at Beaver Creek. And they're listed up here. It's a series of field trips that the book club is taking. They're environmentally science-based field trips. And you can see, as I can, that they're going to the Hagley Museum, the Manchester landfill, and so forth. And so these trips are actually being taken on early dismissal days. So the students are not missing any time in school, but they are getting the experience of working with children at the STEM Academy and going to see firsthand some of these really exciting environmental science places. I think that maybe Mrs. Franny or Dr. Wallace could tell us even a little more about that if anyone were interested, because they are also listed as possible chaperones on trips, on all 5 of these trips when they are available.
Just the cost is being offset by a DEP grant.
Love that. Thank you, Dr. Wallace. We also have a trip, another exciting trip. This one is to Peru, and it is students in grades 9, 10, and 11 at STEM. And the people that are organizing the trip have asked permission to take the students to Peru in order to address the 5 American Council on Teaching Foreign Language standards, which, as you can see, are communication, cultures, connections, comparisons, and communities. And this is a particularly interesting trip because IB schools really focus on internationalism. And this is the kind of trip that will help students not only gain personal experience, but they're also working towards their CAS, which is sort of the creative community project that they all are tasked with completing by the time that they graduate. So this trip, it is notable that it does take place, few of the days are backing up to spring break. So they will miss a few days of school, but I think it might be difficult to do a shorter trip to Peru. And if you look at the number of field trips that students go on, it would have been possible they would have missed these days just going on 2 separate field trips. So combining 2 days like this and backing them up to spring break is an excellent use of time to make sure the trip can be long enough to be worthwhile.
I'm assuming this is a one-time vote. It's not going to be added to the bank.
The application was to be added to the bank. The dates that we're talking about right here are specific for next school year.
You know, do we add all of our big trips overseas to the bank? Are those one-time? Are those approval every single time? Do you know? Do you recall? Because I'm a little uncomfortable adding a big trip like this to the bank. I would rather have it come up just every year. You know, all of our big overseas trips, personally.
Actually, I would tend to agree with that. I mean, we had the whole issue with 9/11 where we then had to cancel trips. And I hate to have it in the bank and then have something come up where we can't, for whatever reason, not have a trip of that nature go on.
Do we want to define the trip by miles, or are you comfortable with the overseas aspect? So if they have to, if they're
How about days missed in school?
days missed in school?
And either miles is probably a good way to do that.
And
So over X number of miles.
do we have any kind of policy or anything in place about how many days a student can miss in school? Because I think this is a great trip. I'm not in any way trying to prevent it. It's just if 4 or 5 more trips come up in different areas, the same student might miss 8, 10, or 12 days. Do we have anything in the, you know, because they go with marching band to the, you know,
That's right.
Citrus Bowl or whatever. Just a conversation, I think at some point, there we need to have, what's reasonable, you know, are there criteria the student's doing really well, and it's not a problem.
So we want to have that conversation at next BCC about, and we could make some suggestions for number of miles, policy.
Yeah, it's actually policy. Jay, we don't have anything, and it is a good discussion. Downingtown's philosophy was if the kids want to go, they can go. We never had any cut. I asked about that my first year here. And Jen, I'm sorry, I missed something. This Peru trip, is this the first overseas trip in the bank? There's no other overseas trips in the bank.
I wish I could answer that without checking.
Because yeah, it wouldn't make sense to put this in there if all the other trips that we have are not there. So why don't we check on that and then we can respond.
And maybe if we have some in there, maybe we should think about
If they're in,
not having it.
this should be in, or they all should be out. If there's none in, something like this should be in. So it's just an oversight on our part. So why don't we check that?
Dr. McNeil and I are sidebarring a little bit here, but we believe that the GAP trip to Germany, we believe that is.
And the
a
Spanish trips are in?
So I think we're going to need,
Spanish
we're going
trips are
to
in?
make a change like this.
They are in.
I think the world language department and the exchange student program, the GAP exchange, is a bank trip, but we'll check that.
Either all or not, I
Yes.
absolutely agree, either all or none, but I would like to look at some of the days and perhaps, you know, even if there's a great average or you don't want to deny a student who's doing extremely well and this is that little bit, but at the same time, not instructional.
Yes, I have 2 more questions. One is the cost of teachers being out of school, the chaperones. I'm assuming it's being picked up by the overall cost of the students' training.
No, the chaperones are $100 a day, right? They're not picked up by the students. District picks that up.
I thought that part of our policy was that these field trips were not going to cost the district any money.
Some field trips are, I don't think these were ever in that
When
policy.
you say these, what are you talking
The
about?
foreign language trips.
Foreign language trips.
I'm sorry, the out-of-country trips.
I don't remember that conversation being on the field trip task force.
But I thought it was the principals get a certain allotment for substitutes, and so long as they take it out of that.
Right, it's coming out of district, exactly.
Right, but once they go over that allotment, then they have to find a way to fund it. That was my understanding. No?
Audrey, you on that committee, do you remember?
I thought it was all paid for student fees, like as part of the
The costs listed on the application to the district are zero. So that is
So
something
it
that
is.
is asked to write on the application.
Okay, so they are picked up by the students.
I wish I haven't extrapolated that, but we can ask the advisors.
So you're saying we're overcharging the students for subs for these trips? I don't believe we are. I just don't believe we are. But I guess we can check all that.
I'll check.
And then just one other question, because it's a little off topic. I believe that the school board is to annually approve the field trip bank. And I don't know what month we are to do that, but if I recall, for those of you that are here, we're to approve the entire bank every year. So if you could look into that.
That, when now you're saying that, Barbara, I think that is what we had established.
Yeah.
When you're in the bank, its entirety.
I think it was actually set up a year ago, like in July, June or July, we made that vote, so we probably should.
We need to read it.
Do that.
We should check on it. That's a good catch.
So we can put that on the agenda for BCC for October, to look at the field trip bank in its entirety.
Any other questions or comments?
So just so that I'm clear that Mrs. Simonelli, that the policy committee, we want to have a conversation at policy about adding some disclaimers to field trips, the numbers of field trips added to the bank of field trips, that there be a certain number of miles, what do those miles look like? When we say no cost to the district, are we assuming substitutes are not a cost to the district? What's the understanding that there is, we would like to have an approval of certain trips that fall into these parameters, whether it's number of miles or overseas, whatever the language is. That's the conversation, and it's for policy. Is that correct? So that what we'll do with BCC is in October, we'll take a look at the trips that are currently in the field trip bank for everyone's edification and for the board's approval. Thank you.
But as it stands, are we okay with keeping these trips on for approval for next week? Or no? Thank you.
All right, that concludes the curriculum resource approvals and action items. So we move to program information. And I do apologize. I see that there is only one list of teacher leaders that we have, which will be the first item that we'll see. So I'd like to begin this first meeting of the official new school year to introduce the 2012-13 team of curriculum and grade level leaders. Oh, okay, Marianne, I must have an old combined agenda, so great, you have all the names there, excellent. Just as a little introduction, these teacher leaders hold critical roles in our district. They will be counted on to collaborate with the curriculum department to plan monthly sessions on the Common Core standards so that that professional development meets the needs of staff and accomplishes district goals. These teacher leaders will facilitate the 2.5-hour monthly early dismissal sessions. Curriculum leaders also will have the additional responsibility of visiting classrooms for the purpose for the purposes of establishing relationships and to learn from other teachers so that we can share best practices among all of us. So teacher leaders, when I call your names, if you would please stand so that everyone knows who you are and that you get the recognition that you deserve. Kindergarten, Stacy Fisher. Stacy's home building is West Bradford. Grade 1 grade level leader, Nancy Leggett. Nancy's home building is Pickering Valley. Grade 2 grade level leader, Bobby Filiaggi. Bobby's home building is Euclid Hills. Grade 3 grade level leader, Danielle Egan. Danielle's home building is Beaver Creek. Grade 4 grade level leader, Linda Grigsby. Linda's home building is also Beaver Creek. Grade 5 grade level leader, Audrey Blust. Audrey's home building is Pickering Valley. Grade 6 grade level leader, Linda Brook. Linda's home building is Downingtown Middle School. Grade 7 grade level leader, Dave Weidlich. Dave's home building is Lionville Middle School. Grade 8 grade level leader, Deb Carney. Deb's home building is Lionville Middle School. English Language Arts curriculum leader, Alana Scheidt. Alana's home building is East High School. Math curriculum leader, Karen Sullivan. Karen's home building is Lionville Middle School. Science curriculum leader, Eric Daney. Eric's home building, is the STEM Academy. Social Studies curriculum leader, Sharon Jackson. Sharon's home building is the STEM Academy. Reading curriculum leader, Jen Payton. Jen's home building is East High School. Music curriculum leader, Carrie Thorpe. Carrie has 2 homes. She's at Lionville Middle and East High School. Health and PE curriculum leader, Corey Siegel. Corey's home building is West High School. We have your name spelled right, Corey? Yes. No. I'll be sure to fix that on Moodle.
No, that's good.
Visual arts curriculum leader, Julie Domino. Julie's home building is Shimona Creek. World language curriculum leader, Lauren Baker. Lauren's home building is East High School. Tech Ed curriculum leader, Gavin Spears. Gavin's home building is the STEM building. You're really glaringly absent when somebody pulls Family and Consumer Sciences curriculum leader, Donna Nicely. Donna's home building is West High School. Business Ed curriculum leader, Lois Grasso. Lois's home building is Lionville Middle School. I like that. ESL curriculum leader, Mary Beth Scott. Mary Beth's home building is Beaver Creek. Guidance or school counselors, curriculum leader is Carol Warren. Carol's home building is East High School. Carol, you don't have a break?
Yes, she's going to.
Okay. Nurses curriculum leader is Nancy Lohr. Nancy's home building is West High School. Library curriculum leader, Kathy Nestor. Kathy's home building is West High School. Just so everybody is clear, one final critical component of your job is to comment and or question agenda items at BCC meetings. Your voices represent the voices of your departments and or grade levels. And when you speak up, it will help all of us to clarify communication with staff and with the public. Sometimes we're hesitant because we're thinking we're the only ones in the room who have that question or have that thought, but I think you can be assured that if you're thinking it, somebody else, at least one somebody else in the room is thinking it. BCC is a forum for dialogue, and all of our voices are an important component for that dialogue. I want to thank you sincerely for stepping up to the plate this year to help forge a new and exciting path for professional learning and professional leading in our district. After our 3-day summer training sessions, I know I could not do this job without you. And I already feel as though you, curriculum and grade level leaders, are an extension of the curriculum department. So welcome aboard. I think Dr. Mussolini might also want to say thank you to you and have some words of appreciation.
First of all, let me Linda said it all, and I can't be happier with Linda O'Neill.
Whoever she is.
Maybe it was Tip O'Neill.
Yeah, oh, please.
Could be, I'm not sure. We're in the other convention. No, you can't be happier with Linda O'Neill and what she does with all of you. The last thing she said is probably the most important. You are an extension of the curriculum department. You're here because in our worldview, there's no people more important than our teachers. Our teachers are here to serve our students. Our principals are here to serve our teachers. We at board level, a team of 10, Linda, Matt, or O, whoever, whichever one, is here to serve our principals also, along with the board. So it's a really critical combination. But one of the things that we did see early on, many years ago when I came here, well, it wasn't that long ago, a few years ago when I came here, is that our curriculum department was really shallow. And our leaders really were not voicing their opinions. We were not meeting. Communication wasn't there. We weren't communicating with each other. The only way you got communication was from someone up high. And that's not the way it works. That's not the organization that we want to create. So you're all here to provide that rich discussion. And then to take the discussion back about 9 times, thank you to our school board, in developing the calendar. Talk about policy decisions and big picture making decisions. Nothing more important than what happened last year in developing our calendar. To give you time to communicate with 900, 850, however many, 900 other people. As again, when I started a few years ago, I would go back and people would ask me questions like, why is this going on? And why is that going on? Why? And I'm saying, what, don't you know that from each other? No, we didn't know that from each other. We don't talk to each other. There wasn't time. Now there is. So I can't tell you how happy I am with all of you, how grateful I am that you stepped up, we all are, and how important it is to a large educational system that your voice is leading with other teachers. That's the purpose here. One last thing that Linda pointed out, critical commentary. A democracy, being an old social studies guy that you know I am, a democracy doesn't flourish unless it's got critique, unless there's critical analysis, and we look at each other and we debate. We don't always agree on everything. We come to consensus in a democracy. So 51% of the American people will pick the next executive, the next president. So be it. And we saw that in the Bush-Gore election. Just over 50%, 50-point-some% pick the president in the Supreme Court. So it is not, everybody has to be universal. It is dealing with discord and opinions, and we value your opinions. So let me end with this. We were at the last meeting, and I even said to Linda, I said, I won't come. Because I know the capable hands that you're in, number one. But we had heard that there was some debate or talk about some things that occurred among our troops, among you folks after the last meeting. And someone said this. They said, gee, we don't want to speak up negatively. We'll be looked at as though we're not good, or we're not following the lead, or we're not part of the team. if that's the way it is, then the whole concept of a democracy goes downhill. The whole concept of what we're about in America falls by the wayside. And if it's because I'm sitting in the room, I'll leave. And you guys have your discussions. Because it's very important that we hear all sides to issues. Otherwise, we can't come up with good decisions. So again, thank you. Best wishes as you work through the year. I know next year you're meeting with everybody. Next week you're meeting with everyone to talk about the first of the 9 sessions. And I know those sessions will deal with the Common Core, but they'll also deal with critical things in your department that people want to talk about and hear about and discuss. So that when I come in and talk to your faculties, I'm not hearing, gee, I heard this from somebody. You should be hearing it right from your grade level leader or right from your key curriculum leader. That's where you should be hearing it from. And the discourse should be coming back. So it's a massive feedback loop back to us as to what we're doing. And that's exactly how an organization needs to run. A big, massive feedback loop. Constantly going back and forth. So Linda, thank you. Linda O'Neill? Linda O'Neill.
Thank you, Dr.
Pick anyone, Case. Dr. Case.
Not to belabor the
Dr. Case
point.
would work for me.
Not to belabor the point. But don't be intimidated by the fact that the board members are here either. The reason we're here is so we can hear from you. It's supposed to enrich our conversation as well, hearing from the teachers. It's critically important. And please, if you have anything that is negative, don't feel like you're jumping ship somehow or someone's going to criticize you. We need to know, and we don't want to hear it through the rumor mill that people are upset or that they don't like something. You be the voice to bring it back to us. That when we, as a group, can work to change it. Yes, Ms. Randy?
Just to kind of piggyback on that, just in the 9 months since I've been on the board, I was thinking about all the initiatives that we've approved that have started this year. Just to name a few, high school, Project Lead the Way, the Bring Your Own Device initiative, the middle school, Project Lead the Way, and the new 6th grade math curriculum, elementary, your online grade book and online report cards, the new social studies curriculum, being a writer. There's a ton of new things this year, and I would love to hear through you guys, from your teachers, how that's all going. We don't just want to approve things and forget about it. And that includes bumps in the road, because I'm sure there are bumps in the road. We want to hear about it and how you're solving them, and whether that goes back to professional development or whatever. And maybe if we could have, just a suggestion, I don't know, these meetings are packed, I know, but if we could have an update maybe each month on one of the new initiatives from one of the grade leaders or curriculum leaders, that would be really helpful to me.
Any of the curriculum or grade level leaders, just to comment on, Mrs. Cranny's suggestion, what that might look like, the timeliness of that, who might be willing to do that. So just to think about that, because, being a writer, for example, Mrs. Cranny is being implemented grades 1 through 5. Does that come through a grade level leader? Should that come through the ELA curriculum leader? So we'll need to have conversations about that. And then if there is anything else to add to Mrs. Cranny's list, if there's something that maybe she hasn't thought about that is something unique to your department. I'm thinking, Lois, you have some things going on in business ed there with the entrepreneurship and business partnerships. That might be something else to bring to the board's attention. So we'll have that dialogue, as Dr. Musling pointed out. We'll be meeting the 11th of September, so we can have a conversation about what those update conversations look like, and we'll be doing that. Okay?
Yeah, I can appreciate what Mrs. Craney said. I think it's a great idea, but I also don't, at least from my point of view, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're not looking, at least I'm not looking for a 20-minute official presentation. It's just, you know, how's it going? You know, you're just starting the initiative, so we have no expectation of how, like, what the actual results are going to be until at least the end of the year, maybe 2 years. But, you know, are we in the right direction? You know, some anecdotal stories are great, or, you know, as we were saying, go back and talk to some of your other teachers. I'd love to hear more questions.
Okay, and we'll have, you know, a couple of growing pains here. So is this what we're looking for? Is this a conversation? Do people feel comfortable giving just their own perspective, or they'd rather have, for example, a department or a grade level meeting first before sharing any information? So we'll just kind of put something on the agenda and see where we go. Okay. That works for everybody. Great. So the next item, and you're very excited to have Mrs. Byrne, Mr. Hurley, and Mr. Mulvey, who are going to talk with us about the advanced placement, the AP results in our district. So I think Kelly's going to start with the district perspective. Is that right, Kelly? Is that? Oh, by the microphone.
Where's the
microphone?
microphone?
I'm not sure now I can't turn my TV.
All right, what Tom Paul and I are going to talk about is how our AP scores look from last year, 2012. And I'll give the district perspective, and they can talk about their individual buildings. If you take a look at the first slide, all right, what we see when we look at this slide is the number of students who have taken the AP courses and actually taken the AP exams. What you'll see is a definite increase in the number of students who have taken AP exams. Remember, the buildings have worked out very diligently the last few years, getting more students to take those courses, opening those gates to let students in so that more students have an opportunity to take such courses. So at that point, they were very successful, got more students in there. More students are taking this. So what we're seeing is it's not our very, very top performers anymore who are taking these courses. It's a much more varied range of students. Also last year, students, if they wanted to have honors credit, they were required to take the AP exams. Prior to last year, they could take the AP courses, and they didn't have to necessarily take the AP exams. So last year, you definitely see a jump in the number of exams taken because the students wanted that honors credit. AP credit, right? Sorry about that. Before that, students opted out. They didn't want to take it. They were taking the course just to get that credit. They had no intention of taking the test. They did not take the test. And that kind of negates the reason why you would take an AP course, other than to receive higher credit. Next. What we're seeing here is the percentage of increase from 2008 to 2012. So for Downingtown Area School District, the percentage of AP students last year increased by 68% from 2008. That's a pretty incredible increase. The number of exams taken almost basically doubled, 96%. So we almost had a 100% increase in the number of exams taken from 2008 to 2012. On the other side of this, Pennsylvania only grew from 2008 to 2012 by 25% more AP students, with an increase of 30% more AP exams. So Downingtown increased its numbers considerably in comparison to the state, and also globally. The global did better than the state did a little bit, by 32% in the increase of AP students and 35% for AP exams. So Downingtown fared very well in getting more students into those courses. The next thing we see are the percentage of students who received scores of 3 or better on all of their scores. Just a quick explanation why the number 3 is so important. Success on an AP exam is defined as having earned a score of 3 or better. So if we see a student as 3 or better, we deem them as successful taking that course and that exam. And that is something that's been researched, that score allows us to predict college success and college graduation. So not only will they do well, but they will actually finish college. And it's a strong predictor of that student's persistence to do just that, graduate from college and earn a bachelor's degree. What we're seeing is that the percentage of students who are earning 3s and higher were greater than Pennsylvania and globally again. That's really good news, but we have a little bit of a flip-flop here in that now we have more students taking it. So yes, the number of students earning this went up, but the number of students taking the test also went up, and they did go up proportionally. So we see a decrease in the percentage of students receiving a 3 or better. We're going to get that the numbers went up, but the number of students taking the test went up more than the number of students who got 3 or better. So even though we're seeing more 3+, students with 3 or higher, the percentage has come down a little bit. We're still doing much better than the state and the global test though. So, I mean, the task was to get more students in there, give more students an opportunity. The numbers did go up, the number of 3+ did go up. It's just when we got more kids in there and we had a more varied clientele at that point, the percentage came down. Right.
Am I next? Yeah. What I was going to say is, in addition, every student had to take the test this year if they wanted the AP weighting. So, in years past, not every student took the test. You would mention that, but that's going to explain, right, what could be a possible reason. Okay, sit on next. Wonderful. Okay, I guess the first chart, the first bar graph I want you to pay attention to, and I'm going to try to use this laser pointer. I have a whole drawer full of them, and I kind of want to get use out of them. That's one of the advantages of being a high school principal. You got lots of nuisance items. So if you take a look here, in 08 we had 194 different students taking an exam at Downingtown High School, and in 2012 we have 357. I have to tell you, we are incredibly proud of our counseling department and of our teaching staff who have absolutely encouraged students to pursue a more rigorous schedule and course offering. So kudos certainly to our counselors and to our teachers for encouraging students to challenge themselves. If you take a look here at number of exams, we go from 326 to 737 this past year. That's just it's an unbelievable increase, and that was some of the work we did. There was a group of us, Larry, who did some work on taking away some of the self-imposed barriers to the AP coursework, but we also felt that the AP exam was part of the package. If you're going to take an AP class, you need to take the AP exam as well. And if you take a look here, this is the number of students with scores of 3+, and that has continued to go up each year, as Kelly had referenced. If we can go to the next slide. Oh, I guess it's done. Use your laser pointer.
We don't have that anymore, no?
What's that, laser pointers? No, I actually just got one yesterday.
If you notice something, total AP students, and this blue bar here was when West was at its peak in enrollment. There were 1,800 kids at Downingtown West, and the enrollment dropped the next year to about 1,700. The enrollment dropped this year, as you're going to see in another slide, to about 1,500, and this year, 1,400 students. You're seeing an inverse relationship here between the total number of kids in the building and the total number of AP students, which we're going to talk about in a while. Nearly doubled the exams. This year they are going to be doubled from 3 years ago. From 2010 to 2013, we will more than double the amount of AP exams that were given. And you're going to see, of course, more kids taking the exam, you're going to see more 3+. Are we dropping in percentages? Yes. Let's go to the next slide and we'll talk about that a little more.
Okay, if you take a look at, Tom was just referencing this, you take a look at the percentage of total AP students with scores of 3+, you do see a drop in percentage. But that's because one of the possible reasons is because we have opened up access to this rigorous curriculum. And also because we now, if the students want the AP weighting, they have to take the test. And that didn't used to be the norm. The norm used to be the only students who were admitted into an AP class were those that we were pretty confident were going to get a 4 or 5. You know, those high top performers, as Kelly referenced them. So by opening up the gates and allowing all of our students to have this experience, we see a percentage drop. But that's not indicative, that's not necessarily negative. So I wanted to point that out. Next slide. That's Tom.
And again, same issue. It's a drop-off from where we were. But again, when you're only taking a very small fraction of the best and brightest students and putting them in these classes, you're invariably going to get these high 90s. Still, Downingtown West, Downingtown East is well above the state average, even with the incredible almost doubling of exams we've had in both schools. Actually, it is doubled exam totals in both schools over 3 years. Next slide.
And here's where you're going to see that inverse relationship that Tom was talking about. If you look at the first, batteries wearing out. If you look at the first column on 2008, and look at the second column, which is 2009, I guess it's turquoise and red. We're looking at 1,950 students, 1,999 students at East. You know, we're around the 2,000 range for 4 years before the STEM effect took place, where it really opened up our hallways, which that's demonstrates what it's done for our population. But if you take a look there, our AP numbers when we are our highest are much lower on the right-hand side of the table. We're almost 2,000. We only had 353 AP courses. Well, we're down to 1,668, and we have 853 AP courses being taken. So it's really what you want to see as a high school principal and a member of this community. We want to see that we are opening up access to our AP curriculum.
And these slides, if you go to the next one, same story at West. And I only have 3 years data because I've only been there for 3 years and only can track the registrations for 3 years that I've been there. What you're going to see is, well, we talked about making the students, now if they're enrolled in the class, they have to take the test. That doesn't explain the increase in numbers. The increase in numbers is because of a lot of factors. Number one, we opened up the prerequisites. We've encouraged teachers and counselors to encourage students to take them. But bottom line, too, there's an economic force that's driving this as well. College costs are really, really expensive, and we're seeing so many kids who are taking 7, 8 AP courses who are going into college. We had another one this year in sophomore status. So if you're saving your parents anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000, it's a good reason to take an AP course. And likewise, we're also talking to parents about the economic benefits of taking AP courses so they can save tuition dollars. So it's a convergence of things that's causing this. But either way, what we're trying to do is, as these courses go up and these course registrations go up, we're trying to keep those numbers of 3s, 4s, and 5s high too. As one goes up, the other one, it is an inverse relationship. The other one invariably drops. But what we're trying to do is maintain the level of success as we push more and more kids into AP. So that's going to be our struggle and our challenge as a district, and we're taking steps towards that. I don't know what the next slide says.
All right, the next thing we see is the Downingtown Area School District AP School Scholars. And I have to say, this is probably one of the most impressive things that I learned about the AP, because I heard these things, but I never knew exactly what each of these categories meant. It was even more impressive that Downingtown, yes, we put more students in there, and the percentage of 3+ has dropped a little bit, which could be expected, but the number of students who received these accolades and these recognitions did increase at Downingtown Area School District. To be deemed an AP Scholar, a student has to score a 3 or higher on 3 or more AP exams. The mean for the district for those students was a 3.8. An AP Scholar with honors is a student who earns or scores at least a 3.25 on all P exams taken and must score a 3 or higher on 4 or more. We have many students who took 4 or more AP exams from this time they started taking them. We also had several AP Scholars with distinction, which meant that they had to get at least a 3.5 on all the AP exams and a score of 3 or higher on 5 or more of those exams. And our average for that was a 4.4. And the last group, which is a smaller group, but when you hear what the task was in order to receive that recognition, I think it's pretty incredible. The National AP Scholar is a student in the United States, they can't be global, they have to be United States, who receive an average score of at least 4 on all AP exams taken, and scores a 4 or higher on 8 or more of these exams. To take 8 or more AP exams and get above 4 on all of them and a 4 or higher average is incredible. The students at Downingtown that did this had an average of a 4.7. Remember, the highest score you can receive is a 5. So that was absolutely incredible for those students to receive all 4 of those recognitions.
Yeah, we go to the individual schools.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at East, it's great to see that across the board, in every category of the recognized students, we have grown. I guess what's absolutely most impressive is the jump of national AP Scholars from 3 till 9. You know, we really, our students, we have some students who are really challenging themselves and being quite successful, and it's pretty exciting to watch. It's also very impressive to see the total scholars from 82 to 99. We're having more and more students take more than 1 AP class, taking 2 AP classes or 3 AP classes. Now, I'll tell you, for our schedulers, that's no, it's really a testament to them as well, because it's very challenging to put a schedule together with classes that are singletons, and I think doubletons, the word the schedulers use as well, to make it all fit and to make sure that you don't have 2 singleton AP classes running at the same time. If you have them at different times, then it opens up access. So our schedulers have done a wonderful job in opening up this access as well.
Next slide. And same story, we're doubling our percentage, and it's getting better and better. The thing to really keep in mind as you see these numbers growing, this is the first year that we have 11th graders at the STEM Academy. And although seniors are the largest class of AP students in the school, 10th and 11th graders make up a significant number of AP students. And so our numbers are increasing as we're losing 100 AP potential students each year, and 300 AP potential students. Both schools have lost roughly 300 AP potential students, and our numbers in AP are just really going through the roof. Obviously, we've opened some doors and some things like that. We talked about trying to maintain the high level. We're doing a couple things over the next year to try and prepare our students as we push up the middle into AP to better prepare them for success in the AP. One of those things is vertical teaming. We're looking at, which means scaffolding the instruction and the skills for success down to the middle school level. So there's going to be middle school language arts teachers and high school language arts teachers being in service and given some meet time so they can scaffold the skills and instruction needed for success on that. We're also looking at other things like AP summer academies, etc., to try and help our students become successful on these AP exams, and try and, as we continue to increase the number, to increase the level of success as well.
And the last slide tells you a little bit about the distribution of our scores and where we think we have a little bit of work we need to do. There are only 23 students who took the art test. Of those, 35% scored 3, 4s, or 5s. That needs to be looked at, which is with a mean score of 2.5. There were 88% of the English students, and there were 112 English tests taken. 88% of those scored a 3.4, a 5 with a mean of 3.6, so we're getting closer to that 4. There were 369 students took the history and social sciences test. 74% of them were 3 and above. Math was the winner with 409 students took mathematics and computer science, and they had 80% of those were 3s or better. Science had 213 tests taken. 80% of those also were 3s or higher with a mean of 3.8, so we're extremely close to the mean of 4 with the sciences. And world language, there were 57 students, and 86% of those were 3 or higher with a mean of 3.6. So, are there any questions?
Not really a question. I was looking around at the board members that were here, and I realized I'm the only one still here that went through the interview process for a new superintendent, and I would like to thank Dr. Zolini because one of the comments that the board made was to increase the rigor for our students. And an argument could be made, and I had many with a number of teachers, that you don't want to put students that aren't going to be successfully in AP into an AP course. However, when they go to college, they are exposed to it. So this tells us that a lot more can be effective and pass the exam than we originally thought. And my question to the principals is, although not all our students passed at a 3, do you see the value in those students that even scored a 1 or 2? Were they able to pass the course in that they were able to do the coursework and the work throughout the year?
Absolutely, Jane. They absolutely were able to pass the course. Performance on the test, not everybody achieved a 3, but that's okay. They, as you said, they were given exposure to a college-level course in high school, and that's going to better prepare them for entry into post-secondary education. So it's been a very positive experience, and not without a couple bumps in the road. You know, as you push students up, suddenly when there's not an A on the report card, and which has been traditional, but you know what, our staff has done a wonderful job working through that. Our counselors, most specifically, in explaining to parents that it's better to have the experience and challenge yourself. So.
I had a conversation just this morning with a board member whose children went through the district a number of years ago, and that was his one complaint, was that one of his children never was challenged through high school and almost flunked out of school their first year of college because he never wanted to lean high and was with a group of students who were very motivated and had been challenged, and he didn't know how to do it. So I think success isn't just measured in a 3 or above. Absolutely, you're going to spend that money. You'd love to have the credit. As you said, it's a financial issue. Sometimes it makes the college experience better because in a tough semester you can drop a course because you have credits you brought from high school. But I think the more we expose our students to what college courses are, the better prepared they are, and the better they're able to make a decision as to what they want to do. Thank you.
Barbara? Yes, for those curriculum leaders, when they look at the AP scores here, they can see obviously that where there's possibly room for improvement. From your point of view, do you look at teachers and their students and see are there some teachers stronger versus weaker? Are there subject matters can you learn from each other? Is that happening?
Yeah, I look at that stuff, and we have these conversations with teachers. They're conversation starters. Sometimes, you know, looking at just the score itself for any given year, you know, it isn't a indicator of somebody not doing their job that year. You have to look at the students, etc. But one of the things that AP does for us is they handy-dandy reports, every kind of report that you can get. And the best report is that 5-year. And you look at that, and you look at the state average, you look at your sister school, you look at the district, you look at the national average, and those things are good conversation starters. And then, you know, it comes down to what didn't I teach well. And so those kinds of conversations happen at the school level.
And just to add to the conversation, which we can continue the conversation next month, but in addition to the course offerings that we have, the principals and the teachers are always recommending new AP course offerings. For example, I know Ms. Scheib can probably speak to the language and composition AP. We have literature and composition, but we are adding a language and composition AP course. And I believe some teachers have recommended an environmental sciences AP course. So also, which I think is really exciting, the high schools and the middle schools, and this might be something for next month, will participate in what is called vertical teaming, so that we can get more students ready for the rigor of advanced placement courses. There are a group of teachers at each of the middle schools and each of the high schools who will participate in the vertical teaming workshop that will be offered by the College Board. So we can bring that to Curriculum Council next month. And I don't know, Alana, if you want to speak a little bit to the language and composition that has happened so far, or would you rather wait till next month, whatever your pleasure?
I would prefer to do the next one.
All right, so we can continue the conversation about AP and how exciting it is to see what our students are doing once they have been challenged to do so. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? I guess Mr. Hurley, Mr. Mulvey, Mr. Ross, Mr. Indeglio, I'm going to speak a little bit next month about the vertical teaming. Maybe we'll put Mr. Mulvey on the spot for that.
I second that.
I figured that would be your vote. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the STEM pathway courses, and our new STEM Academy principal, Mr. Art Campbell, will speak to that.
Good afternoon. When I first got there, Dr. Musleen had asked me to take a look at our STEM pathway courses. And for those of you who don't know, our students in their junior year will take 6 IB courses, and then they'll also go into one of the academies, whether it's Academy of Science, Medicine, 7 academies, or 7. Courses such as Applied Science in the first semester, followed by Criminal Forensics in the second semester. But anyway, what we were looking at is some experiential learning and some curriculum that was graded on the basis of exemplary pass and fail. So what I did was, when he posed that question to me, is I called several universities. I called MIT, I called Princeton, I called Boston University, Notre Dame, Villanova, Lehigh, just to name a few. And what the admissions officers alluded to, and some flat out told me, that it's a better idea, the more information they give on their transcripts, the better off their admissions will be. So we decided to go with a letter grade onto it. I went into many of the pathway courses because they don't meet every day. I'm still making my way through. But I laid it out to the kids as, if I have a student from an IB school, and then there's your transcript, and I lay those transcripts down next to each other, and I explain this to the admissions officers, and I can't put anybody behind. So my job is to give everybody the competitive edge, and I explained that to them. So what I got from the admissions officers were to give a letter grade. So that's what we're going to do. It doesn't change the rigor of it. It doesn't change what they need to do. It doesn't change the expectations. All it does is it takes from the grading scale we're going to use to a more traditional one, which will count as an honors weight onto their transcripts. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, or Dr. Muslim, if you want to comment on that at all. That's it. That was the easiest one I ever had.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Freeze this moment, and will probably be the last time you speak. Next item on the agenda, disposal of earth science textbooks. Now, the curriculum grade level leaders are familiar with a revised process, but just for the benefit of the rest of the audience who may not be familiar, in the past, when a teacher wanted to dispose of any resource in the classroom, he or she would merely email Laurie Piper and say, I have X number of textbooks in my closet or in the closet that we're no longer using, so can you please see if you can sell them or otherwise dispose of them. So what we're doing moving forward is to try to make more of a process out of this so that we're sure that, first of all, we are disposing or asking the board if we might dispose of materials that are indeed no longer being used or of any use to our students. So the process is that the curriculum leader will bring to the Board Curriculum Council a request to have a resource pursued by Laurie Piper, who works in the business office and who looks for folks who might want to buy the resource, someone who might, if we can't sell it, someone who might want it as a donation. If neither of those happen, then Laurie asks the board if we might dispose of the property. So this is our first venture into this process, and our science curriculum leader, Mr. Daney, has brought a request for disposal or sale of these science books. So Eric will just speak to the group a little bit about the rationale for this request. Eric?
Well, it is, I hope it's fairly straightforward. The board has granted the department the opportunity to get the most up-to-date textbook. So since that book was placed, we now have these 30 textbooks that are essentially of no use to us anymore because we do have the newest edition. So we're looking to move them out.
I have a question. How are we publicizing this? I mean, is there an opportunity for maybe possibly a link on our homepage? I'm just thinking about different publics looking at, I mean, where are you keeping this document? And how are you publicizing it too?
So assuming that this is okay with Board Curriculum Council, the next step is that Laurie Piper in the business office gets this information from the curriculum department, and then she looks for a vendor or someone who would buy it. So I know Laurie uses eBay or whichever website or her resources that she uses to try to sell things first. And then she goes down her list of folks that might want to buy it, and if not, she goes to the next list, which is someone who might want it as a donation. And then if she exhausts that, then we ask to have it disposed of. So Laurie Piper is the conduit for the sale.
So it never really goes public on our website. There's no reason for it to.
No. No, I don't think Laurie does anything publicly with it on the website. She just finds websites for purchase. Linda?
Has this textbook been shown or offered to any of the other buildings that teach our science?
Not that I know of, but I'm certainly more than willing to make that happen.
Because I know when Downingtown Middle School had gotten our new textbooks, we passed on a lot of textbooks to an elementary class. It was above the level for some things, but for soil, which moved to a lower grade level, it was a wonderful help for those buildings and didn't cost anybody anything. So I just want to make sure that somebody else can't use it before it goes.
That's a great idea. That's why we have these conversations, so that's great. So Eric, whichever way Eric, he'll share that maybe at a department meeting. We're scheduled for, September 19th, so we'll be seeing the middle school people. Maybe we can bring some of those and we'll be at that meeting. So if you would take a look at that, or Eric,
at least pass a copy to the science curriculum people so they can take a look at it as a group.
Absolutely. What my plan will be is to get that into, basically into many different sets of hands the next month or so we don't get rid of something we can't still use.
Thank you, Mr. Daney. The next item on our agenda is the Technology Academy report, Tech Academy Day, and Jen Saxon and Ray Pace will give us some updates on how the day went. And to Mrs. Cranny's point, excuse me, Jen, those of you who participated, maybe you would like to comment, be it positive, negative, or in between. If you have something that you'd like to add to what Jen and Ray will be reporting, that would certainly be welcome.
Thank you, Dr. O'Neill. No, I'm just kidding. Dr. McNamee, thank you very much. I know we could go all day. It is really a pleasure to talk about Tech Academy Day. With this group in particular, I'm looking around the room and seeing some people who did double duty and our Connect team members and or our grade book experts at the elementary grade level. Tech Academy Day, I believe, is something that's been happening for the last 2 or 3 years. And it really is preparation time for all teachers to become familiar with the technology that is available year to year. As you know, it is one of our driving forces to make the latest and greatest technology available to our teachers and to then actually help them use it in a way that will increase student achievement. And so that was our goal again this year. We did have 2 separate programs. I'm going to talk just about the elementary briefly, and then Mr. Case will talk about the secondary. As many of you know, we implemented a new gradebook, an electronic gradebook at the elementary level. It's similar to what has been happening at the secondary level, but because of the standards-based report card, it does require a few additional steps. And our number 1 priority for the beginning of the year professional development for our elementary teachers is helping to support them and ensure that they feel comfortable with this tool. It is designed with the input of many elementary school teachers and with the expertise of an absolutely incredible tech team that was headed up by Mr. Case and by Colleen Yenser, who you've heard glowing things about already in BCC, and also under the lead of Dr. McNeil. And what we did was set aside time over the summer for elementary teachers to have input into what the gradebook looks like and to actually practice and plan for what their training would look like on August 23rd. And then on the 23rd, they spent in various places all over the district. They spent the morning leading teachers through the gradebook and actually had a little bit of time in the afternoon for teachers to go back to their home buildings and try out what they just learned. And as we all know, that application part of what you just learned is really the most important thing, particularly with adult learners. So we were very pleased by the teamwork that it took to put together this initiative, and then also by a lot of the feedback. I was able to visit 3 of the sessions that were happening, and the questions were targeted questions. The comments that I overheard were ones where people were excited that they thought it might save them time eventually after they learned it. The organizers that we spoke to also said that they were happy to be prepared with this information and to be able to share it with their teachers. But I wanted to just ask you, many people here actually got this training. Can I have some input from anyone here? What did you think, Julie?
So I had both training sessions where I was the expert and the Connect team leader. I think the morning went really well, but I think by the time we got to the afternoon, everybody was just so overwhelmed that they didn't want to do the practical application because they didn't have anything to do with the practical application. So they didn't have any scores to enter. They didn't have their projects in front of them to make their own rubrics. So I don't know if the afternoon was as beneficial as the morning. Maybe if we had broken it into 2 separate days, they probably would have had time to process it first, create questions in between instead of an hour for lunch.
That's a great point, and I think it's excellent feedback for us for the next time we need to plan a rollout of a large technology initiative like this. to reassure those people who didn't necessarily have something to put in there at the time. We are also focusing the beginning of the year Connect Team meeting Tech Academy Wednesdays on gradebook for elementary teachers. You know, for elementary teachers, it's all gradebook all the time, and so we feel comfortable. And we're hoping that that will be supported. Mrs. Grigsby.
I just have to say, I have never gone into a Tech Academy day, first of all, so prepared as I was. And the teachers could sense my preparedness. You know, when you get out there and you're nervous, they're like a dog, they sense your, you know, But it was great, it really was. And I worked with a great person, the person that I worked with was great, Jonathan Lowe from Pickering. And I felt like the Tech Academies that we've been to before, where the company that produced the software led the Tech Academy, they don't know downtown, they don't know our specific, and we did. And we had worked through all the problems, not all of them, but many of them. And I just think the teachers left, I mean, there were some saying, you know, okay, I'm not overwhelmed, that was a positive thing. Or, thank you, you know, I really think I actually can do this. So I thank you. I thank you for the preparation that we had, and I really did feel really good, and I think the teachers felt really comfortable leaving that morning.
And what a wonderful way to start the school year, to start that way. Yes, Mrs. Egan.
I just wanted to piggyback what Linda said too. I mean, I taught the third grade group, and you know, I had teachers coming up to me before the training started saying they were nervous, I'm not a computer, and then about halfway through thanking us for the pacing that we were going at, how prepared we were, that they weren't really overwhelmed, and the way it was presented to them was something they could follow. And I got some follow-up emails even from teachers, which I appreciated, because you know, we do get up there and sometimes save your life in your hands in front of the teachers.
Wearing armor.
You know, again, I did feel very prepared, and you know, I think that you know, passed on to the teachers. And from my building, and I'm not a Connect Team person, but Mrs. Grigsby is. I thought our time was used beneficially when we came back. I mean, Stephanie and Linda took questions that people still had and came up with a question sheet, walked us through making our own rubric, which is something you know we didn't get to during the training. So you know, I think that hour and a half still was spent very well in the afternoon. So thank you.
Thank you. And one, oh yes, no, please, by all means. Mrs. Leggett.
I just wanted to say, it's kind of obvious, but we met as grade levels. And talking about the calendar and the board allowing us time to meet this year as grade levels, it was a wonderful time to bond as grade levels and start that conversation that's going to continue on the early dismissal Wednesday. So we, aside from learning the technology, which was excellent at our grade level, we really got some good conversations going that we'll actually have time to address this year. Thank
you. Two things that came to mind that made my session the most beneficial was if we were a team. There was myself and 3 others. We refer to ourselves as the survivors. The survivors were people who started the pilot at the beginning of last year and stuck with it all the way through. And when I didn't know the answer to a question, someone else did, and we all were looking at it from a different perspective. So we only had one question on our paper to be answered when we left. And the second thing was the training manual that we handed teachers. Never before on any Tech Academy day that I've ever been to were you giving a training manual before you even started. Usually that was part of the job, was write the training manual while you were going through it. So those were two of the most glowing assets about that training day. The team approach, that everybody's questions got answered, and we could break down and we were actually helping people that ran into problems, and then that training manual. So thanks a lot.
Oh yes, and I know Colleen Ganser worked very hard on that training manual with the input from all of you. So it's because of the team and the group here that was even able to be produced and then turned around to everyone. And also Tony Feller also worked very hard on that manual, so we thank them for that as well. I believe there was one other comment.
Really, many of the things were already mentioned, but one of the ways you really knew that your training was successful is there were very few teacher sidebars, and the sidebars that were going on were about what we were doing. So you could see that they felt the value of what we were doing, and they were really doing it now.
And that is a testament to our professional staff and to the people who were leading them, that they were able to keep everybody engaged, it was on topic, and it was practical. So we thank everyone who was a part of that. We also had another session that was, there were several sessions that were happening at the secondary level, and Mr. Case is going to talk a little bit about those.
And you can see from the slide here what was covered, but I'd just like to talk about what happened before Tech Academy Day. That was on the 20th and 21st. I had the great privilege, and we had a great time spending time with the Connect teams to prepare them for Tech Academy Day. On the 20th, we had secondary folks, while the elementary folks were being trained in Gradebook. And on the 21st, I had the elementary Connect team. These people did an outstanding job in delivering those training sessions to the buildings. They're an absolute pleasure to work with. And we've already started to use some of the new tools that we talked about in the new technology presentation, Microsoft Link, etc. So even before the Tech Academy Day, there was a lot of hard work done by our Connect team, and they just did a really, really outstanding job. I want to publicly thank them, and I'm sure those of you that received training from them would like to do the same.
I think one of the reasons the day went really well, in addition to everything that was already cited, is the fact that the technology actually worked. So thank you, Ray. We've been trained up in the past and ready to go and had our armor on, as other people have said, and ready to engage the troops, only to find the thing evaporate in front of our eyes. And that did not happen. And I've been doing this for a number of years, so kudos to all of you. Thank you for that.
That's a technology team effort. I'll be sure to tell everybody in the background there. Thank you.
I have a question about Connect team in general. Can you hear me now? Is there a plan to differentiate sessions in the future? It seems like this is no rate case time, pre-rate case. It's kind of a, here are all the things that you need to learn, one size fits all, everybody go, go, go. And given that you are kind of fantastic, perhaps you would be willing to meet the learner and the needs possible.
Yeah, we did actually, we started that a little bit. The STEM Academy Technology or Connect team had basically a separate session. But what we're going to do is actually do needs assessments, survey the Connect team members and say, okay, what gaps do you have? What training can we offer you as a Connect team member that you can turn around? So yeah, that's absolutely the plan. Knowing also that we have large district initiatives that we have to support that's pretty universal, but we also want to try to shoot the gap of, I need to know more about this. Can you do a session about that? And with the new online tools, the link, being able to do it virtually instead of driving, we hope to really deliver that training at almost just-in-time speeds.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen and Ray. All of you who had input. The next item on the agenda is NAEP, the National Assessment of Educational Progress. So some people might be wondering, so why are we talking about NAEP in September? Well, we're talking about NAEP now because 3 of our schools will be participating in the NAEP assessment. I did include just a brief overview of NAEP, a little history and what NAEP does. But in the interest of time, I just would encourage you to go to the NAEP website, take a look at NAEP, because it is the largest nationally representative assessment of what our nation's students know and can do in core subjects, math, reading, science, writing. And the nation's report card, if you've heard of that, in the various subjects, all students who participate in NAEP in either 4th grade, 8th grade, or 12th grade, the results of those students' assessment are reported in the nation's report card. So what you need to know is that 3 of our buildings, Beaver Creek Elementary, and both our middle schools, Lionville Middle School and Downingtown Middle School, will participate in the NAEP assessments in math and reading in February. So 4th grade at Beaver Creek and 8th grade at both the middle schools. And in addition to math and reading at the middle schools, the 8th graders will participate in pilot testing of the TEL, Technology and Engineering Literacy NAEP assessment, which, you know, when I read that in a letter that went out, I thought, well, it's very timely that we're having Project Lead the Way at the middle level, because it might give our kids a bit of a head start in their performance on this assessment. So, you know, when you take a look at when the test is administered, and there is another lengthy document here that more or less I just included it so that you can see the states that participate and the years that they participate, because the principal said, didn't we just participate in NAEP? And yes, we did in 2011. So 2013, we're participating again. So when we are asked to participate, it's kind of like an invitation by the Queen. You know, you could refuse, but no, that would not be a good idea. But no, you really can't refuse, because there is legislation that says if we are asked to participate, we must participate. According to NAEP, it's a random selection of schools within districts. We're just wondering how random that is, since I think it's the same 3, wasn't it? Beaver Creek and the 2 middle schools last time around?
I think this is the 4th time since I've been in Downingtown that Beaver Creek 4th grade has participated. Yes.
Doesn't seem real coincidental.
Yeah. And let me tell you, their test administrators are terrible. Just
Yes, they do send their own, everything very standardized, yes.
Yeah.
Are we able to see the data to see the change?
No, you can only see the state data and the national data. So you get no feedback, just how it is. But we're contributing to the bigger picture. Accidentally on. We're probably making the scores so much better, that's why we're doing it.
That's it.
That's it. Yes. Sorry, Dave.
My only question is how many days is this testing going to be? Just thinking about 8th grade, because there's a lot of testing going on in 8th grade.
Well, there certainly is, and probably next month, I'm meeting with the secondary principals after this meeting about the Keystone exams, because we need to make decisions about testing for Keystones. There are a lot of dates that are assigned to testing, and the testing dates are sacrosanct. I mean, we must have the testing during that period of time. So for Beaver Creek, there is one date, February 26th. For Downingtown Middle, February 25th. And for Lionville Middle, February 28th. This is for NAEP testing. The Keystone exams have windows of time that we need to designate as well. So I hear your...
Well, my only concern is that they're just taking, like I said, so many standardized tests ranging from study island, Keystone, PSSAs, and now disease. So
I think, I mean, I'm sure the principals will speak to this, but the key with any assessment is to explain to the student what it does. And for NAEP, some of the bad press that we get in the United States comes from the NAEP assessment as it's compared to TIMSS and PISA, the international assessments. So students doing their best on these assessments is crucial. So it's about, our attitude toward the test and what we communicate to students, knowing in our heads as grown-ups that this is a lot of assessment, but it's crucial that kids perform their best. We'll have that conversation around Keystones as well. There are now graduation requirements connected to Keystones. So it's very important to take those seriously. But I hear your concern.
That was my concern as well when I heard about just one more level of testing. You do a lot of testing, it starts to beg the question, when are we instructing and we're doing so much testing? We'll fit it in, and maybe you'll make it work.
I guess the key with any assessment that we have control over, like a study island, which is a benchmark, so we want to see where our kids are so that we can align our instruction, is for us, and I think as we work through the Common Core and what we have to do with the Common Core, we'll be having more of these conversations, that if assessment is not giving us the information we need to enhance our instruction, then we want to rethink that assessment where we have the option. So we don't have the option with NAEP or Keystones, but we certainly have options with benchmark testing on when it occurs. All right, the next item, does anyone else have any? All right, the next item is comprehensive planning, and thank you, Marianne. I just wanted to speak to this broadly and generally, and then we'll have more specific conversations as we work through the year. Comprehensive planning is the new term for strategic planning. So those of you who have been part of the strategic planning process, where you might have been invited to be part of a, 100-person group that met in a large space, and there were different focus groups, and basically it looked like and felt like a top-down delivery of goals that trickled down from district to principals, then to teachers. So comprehensive planning, although it's the same idea, the idea around the plan is that we continually take a look at our goals, at what we're delivering to students. Is it aligned to the standards? Do we have needs that have some obstacles to putting solutions in place? So it's a reflective process. The plan now that the state has imposed is more of a qualitative research model, in that it's emerging from the needs of the building. So each of the schools, you see in these circles around the outside, each of the schools is taking a look at the same things that the district is taking a look at. So we're taking a look at things that, what's the data showing us that our needs are? What are the challenges to finding solutions to those needs? And so we'll work on those things simultaneously. Within the district, there'll be a district level committee, as well as the subcommittees that you see in front of you. So there'll be a subcommittee for special ed, for technology, for professional development, professional education, and for safe and supportive schools that will work with the committee as a whole, that's focused on curriculum, the core foundations. That's what makes us what we are, the curriculum, and what the curriculum needs are. So this process, and Marianne, if you could show the timeline, the process has due dates, so to speak, like any good research. We have chunked it into parcels of things that need to happen when. So if you look on the left, you'll see the timeline. And some of the dates here were imposed by the state. Others are dates that I created so that we could get to the goal of having our comprehensive plan ready for the state by November of 2013. The next column is district level planning. So this is what the teams, the subcommittees, will need to do at the district level at the same time as the schools, in the next column, will be taking a look at what they have to do. So the schools are going to take a look at their needs, the systemic challenges, they'll be answering questions, and what they answer will come to the district for the district committee to take a look at. And notice it says schools stop and influence district plan. I think that's the beauty of all of this, that the schools really will work with the district level to say, okay, here's what we gave you. We're going to take a look at patterns across the district. That's what the district will say. Okay, schools, here are the patterns. Now we have to come up with your input, district level action plans based on the patterns that we see from across the buildings. So it's more collaborative, it's more emergent rather than top-down, and it has within it the possibility to make us a stronger, richer, more student-focused district each time. So I have great hopes for this plan working. We have a little flexibility in here because there were some folks who were a little nervous about the dates, that could we get the district action plans to schools by March 5th? And could the schools be ready to share their action plans in April? And the March and April and May dates are BCC meetings, because the goal is that we would share the plan publicly so that we would have input from folks here on the council as well as the public. Have any public? Is that one of the two? That we would have some public vetting of the plans as we see them. But there is some flexibility here. There's every possibility the district plan might be ready sooner, in which case we could give that information to schools sooner, which would give them either a little more time to get ready, or we could possibly shift the May date back to June for some of the schools. So the dates aren't in stone here for presentations. I just wanted to give you an idea that we have deadlines so that it doesn't happen haphazardly, that we have information presented, that everybody is aware of what we have to do. There is an online tool, and we can show that at another time, where we'll be inputting data, and everybody inputs their own data. So it's not as though the schools give someone at central office their data to input. They input their own data. We're trying to coordinate the day-to-days with principals with the comprehensive plan, so that we're working collaboratively and simultaneously on two things. Data days are all about taking a look at your data to see what your needs are. Well, that's what the comprehensive plan asks you to do as well. So, as you can see here, this June 30th date, that's a state date. So we have to get that optional submission for peer feedback. That's about if we want to share our plan with another district and they want to share their plans with us for feedback from another district, that would be the deadline for us to do that. And then you see November 30th, we have to submit the plan to the state final submission. So it seems like a long time off, but not really, because we have the summer intervening here. So we'll be back. I don't know if this is, if this is clear as mud right now, but I think as the months go on, if we do a little bit of reporting on each of these things, maybe monthly, it'll be a little more clear. And are there any questions? Maybe you just don't feel informed enough to ask the question. Have to get to the next thing, is the curriculum leaders. I had said to the curriculum leaders this summer, we have a 5-year plan, and grade level leaders, sorry. I said to the teacher leaders this summer, we have a 5-year plan, but I can't share it with you until we share it with the admin team, and then we present it to ECC. So, taking a look at the 5-year plan, which you should have in front of you, which Marianne is showing you on the screen. You're seeing the first year of the 5-year plan. I just wanted to say that we have a charge to plan curriculum and instruction to meet the demands imposed by the Common Core standards. More specifically in this Commonwealth by the Pennsylvania Common Core standards. We know that in order to accomplish such a task, a variety of details must be considered, including curriculum revision, professional development of staff, cost of new resources, impact on students and staff, and a timeline for revising assessments. As a result of the charge facing us, a 5-year plan was developed for our district implementation. The rationale. So why a 5-year plan? Why not just work year to year? One reason, to set in motion a plan to educate professional staff on the Common Core standards. To implement strategically with a focus on learning, instruction, and professional development. Number 3, to give professional development, or professional staff rather, a direction that is purposeful and planned rather than haphazard. And 4th, to identify a well-defined course of action that will result in achieving the expectations set forth by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. So let's look at year 1. The focus of year 1 is to immerse professional staff in a thorough, deep understanding of the Common Core ELA, English Language Arts Standards. There are 2 sets of Common Core standards, ELA and math. ELA includes reading, writing, speaking, and listening. The charge for Pennsylvania districts is for all disciplines to infuse the ELA standards within their content. That is, integrating reading, writing, speaking, and listening within all disciplines is an expectation. And it is an accountable expectation. Therefore, if it is an expectation and teachers will be held accountable, all teachers must have a deep understanding of the ELA Common Core standards. In addition, math teachers must have a deep understanding of the Math Common Core standards. But make no mistake, there will be writing and reading and speaking and listening involved in math, as well as in any other content area. So, if I could, Miriam, while we're on 1213, can you shift to the 1213 document? Okay. So this document, what I tried to do after some feedback from the curriculum and grade level leaders, because just as a sidebar, for those of you who think that sometimes they may not give their honest opinion, they were very honest and forthright about the presentation that should be first for the staff in September. So based on their feedback, we're going to be looking at a professional development in September that creates a sense of urgency on the part of staff for delving into the Common Core. And so that first professional development will focus on the PA Common Core, focus on the results of the governor's report for college and career readiness, and how the students, not only in the United States, but across Pennsylvania, are not ready for college and careers when they leave high school. So the curriculum and grade level leaders felt very strongly that that should be the first meeting session. As you can see, every month we are going to have time dedicated, I call it sacred time, for the Common Core. 1.5 hours of dedicated time to Common Core professional development. We need it every month of time. So in September, curriculum leaders will lead that professional development. In October, grade level leaders will lead that professional development. There is so much information that teachers need to have, as well as the need to have some time to apply their learning, because we all know that what teachers are interested in is practical application of new learning. So what does this look like in my class? How do I need to change what I'm doing? What am I doing that I should continue to do, and what do I need to shift? So each of the topics that you see for the month, now I think I did put a disclaimer on all the papers that the topics may be amended based on feedback. I mean, that's the purpose of having meetings monthly with the curriculum and grade level leaders, because they're going to let us know what worked and what didn't, and what we have to do next month maybe that we might not have been counting on. So there is some flexibility in the plan to adjust for needs, knowing that the outcome for year one is a thorough, deep understanding of the Common Core standards and what might be expected of teachers. The big shifts in the English language arts that have to do with the complexity of text, fiction and nonfiction, and informational text, and academic vocabulary. So there are all of the specific topics are listed on the yearly calendar for 2012-13 with some application time, and also with an outcome that teachers will be expected to do at the end of the session. Most notably, I think the big thing will be for us is citing textual evidence in the way we ask questions. So that will be a very specific professional development. So year one, I think we have a firm grasp on what we need to do. In years 2 to 4, we could take a look at, so 12, 13, let's go to 13, 14. 13, 14, we go back and forth with 13, 14, and 14, 15. You know, what should be the focus? And if we think about what makes sense, you know, most of you are versed in the Wiggins and McTighe Understanding by Design. We have a STEM Academy that is built around an IB design of a rigorous assessment that then back maps its curriculum from the assessment. So taking a look at our assessments and what we are or are not doing in our assessments that is mandated by the Common Core will probably see us the most benefit for our students, because in the 13-14 school year, the intermediate level elementary folks will participate in the first revised, we call it Next Generation PSSA and ELA PSSA. So we have to think, you know, what is it that we need to do that will get our students and our teachers prepared, not just for the assessment, but for the requirements of the Common Core. In 14-15, then once we have the assessments in place, what are the units of study? What are the lesson plans? What does it look like to instruct the students so that they are successful on our assessments. And if you notice, terminology like common formative and summative assessments. What are formative assessments? What are summative assessments? What are diagnostic assessments? What are benchmark assessments? The education around assessments and why we use them. What is their purpose? Why do we want to have common assessments? What's the point? Those conversations are critical to that year's conversation. And those conversations will begin this year because we'll start to talk about assessment when we talk about, well, are we asking the right kinds of questions to get students to go into the text for evidence? So we'll start the conversation around assessment that will continue in 13-14. We all know that student work is a crucial piece of data, but unless we're giving the same assessment, we can't talk about student work. So we need common assessments. 14-15, as I said, units of study, lesson plans, how are we teaching this? How are we using our common formative and summative assessments? Let's evaluate them. Let's see how they're working. Is this instruction getting us to that assessment successfully? In the 15-16 school year, we want to make sure every year that we're evaluating. But here this year, we have a lot to evaluate. We have assessments to evaluate. We have instructional units to evaluate. We have lesson plans to evaluate. One of the suggestions, recommendations of the Common Core is that we have performance assessments in addition to common formative and summative assessments. What does that look like? We need to create banks of common performance assessments. What does that look like? How do we administer them? If they're standard and common, there needs to be standard directions. We need to be administering them along a common timeline. It doesn't have to be the same week, but it does need to be the same time frame, window of time. So if we can accomplish all of that, and I think my thing is, I think probably we're going to accomplish this sooner than 4 years, so that in 16-17 we'll have everything ready. Curriculum, assessments, common, formative, summative, performance assessments. We'll have instructional units. We'll have everything in place for 16-17. Now, along the way, there are things outside of the early dismissal professional development that need to happen. For example, mathematics curriculum. You all know that Kelly worked with her team this year on grade 6 in mathematics. Mathematics, there are very huge differences in what is taught at different grade levels. So Kelly is going to be working with a group of folks to revise the math curriculum simultaneously to this professional development. And math has taken priority over ELA because there are things we can do with ELA before we need to go in and revise the curriculum. But math, the curriculum needs to be revised. We also need to take a look at math resources. Because if a teacher in 5th grade is now teaching something that the 7th grade used to teach, we can't be trading textbooks, 7th grade textbooks for 5th grade teachers, or 4th grade textbooks to 2nd grade teachers. So we have to take a look at our math resources. What can we do with what we have, and what will we need to make sure that our teachers and our students are prepared. So Kelly is going to begin that work this year with the math curriculum. So again, the disclaimer on this 5-year plan is that this is not set in stone, but it doesn't mean that any changes to the plan would mean that we would take longer than the time frame to complete the tasks that need to be completed. So I've lived this for a while. For most of you, this is brand new. So I ask you to just digest it, take a look at it, knowing that, again, it's a big picture. It gives us a starting place for where we need to be headed. It should give us a plan. I don't know if this makes you more unnerved or gives you a sense of calm. Having a plan gives me a sense of calm, so if it's unnerving you, I apologize. But at least we have some direction that we know we're headed, that it's not a knee-jerk reaction to what happened yesterday, what we will do tomorrow.
I'm going to silence.
I don't know whether to clap or cry.
You could do both.
But the beauty of this is, I mean, think about it. For the first time, we have, I mean, look at the curriculum department here, right? You are part of the curriculum department, all of you here. And we have meetings, we have time set aside. I hate to say meetings because people say, oh, another meeting, but we have time to have the discussion. Principals will be part of the discussion. You'll be part of the discussion, teacher leaders. You're going to be the voices of your departments. You'll help steer the direction. Your input, and I know so many of you are all over looking for different things with Common Core. Your knowledge and expertise are crucial. You know, one of the items on here is the Literacy Design Collaborative. Some of you might be going, what? And others among the curriculum leaders are like, oh, well, I had a training and I know about the Literacy Design Collaborative. Somebody else, their names are mentioned, has a lesson design template from the Literacy Design Collaborative, is already working across disciplines with a team member to design a lesson across disciplines. So there are folks out there who are just eager to give their expertise and their input to all of this. So with your help, it will be manageable. So as I always say, you know, it's about an hour looking at this and then taking a deep breath and saying, okay, we can do this, and we'll make sure that our teachers who are our experts know they are doing so much of this, and we have to encourage them. Okay, so there is no public. We fail monthly to ask for public input, so maybe those of you who face the public could just remind us. Suzanne's better than I am, but just remind me to ask for public input before the public leaves. All right, so no questions, no final comments. We'll post these documents now that they're public on the Moodle website. And thank you for your participation today.